Hello, everyone. I know it's been a very long time since I've put a recording up here, and I'm sorry for that. It's been a very interesting year or so, shall we say. Lots of things happened off screen, and I won't get into that. Suffice to say, partway through that journey, I now have a new PC. That being said, I'm not sure if my previous playthroughs will be continued yet, because I will have to see about whether I still have the files that I can bring out somewhere, or I may just have to recreate them and then pick up where I left off. Haven't decided if I'm going to do that yet or not. But it's been long enough since I've done something. So, as per a half joke, half request from someone in Discord, I am going to make this tier list for Dragon Quest. You see a lot of these for Final Fantasies, but you hardly ever see them for Dragon Quest, and I think it should be done. I'm not going to lie to you, there will be a lot of bias here, but I've played through just about everything here, and I think it's fairly safe. So, before I do this, I'll say now, this is going to be for the original releases. I'm not covering remakes, remasters. 1 through 3 have a fantastic remake on Steam that I definitely advise everyone to try, but that's not what I'm covering tonight. We are just doing the original release of each game. And, as I've noted on here, there will be no MMOs or spin-offs. So number 10, which is an MMO, and has not been released abroad, goes in its proper spot. Now, I'd love to go over a lot of what makes these games so fun and different, but I'll spend here 3 hours talking about them and spoil plots for you, so I don't think I should do that. Instead, let's just dig in. First, the original. These games originally in the US were called Dragon Warrior because Dragon Quest was already taken by, I believe it was a board game at the time, and they couldn't use the name over here. So that's why they had it separated. And this game started this whole thing. It was basically the grandpappy of the JRPG. And Dragon Quest in general is deemed to be a JRPG comfort food, so this is where it all kicks off. That said, this original story was not very comforting, shall we say. It was pretty dark. But it wasn't bad despite that. It's very much a product of its time, so you have to bear that in mind if you ever play it. The game itself starts you out with no equipment, barely any gold, and you just have to wander around finding things, and that's how you progress. One step wrong, and you are suddenly fighting something you shouldn't be fighting for 10 more levels, and you will get stomped. Oh, it happened many a time to me too. That said, overall the game is not bad. It's a good start to the series, and I think it's a solid B tier. It could be better. It could be worse. We will find worse before we're done here. Now, this first game only had your one person to control, your one player character, and there was never more than one monster on the field. Every game after changes that, starting with Dragon Warrior or Quest 2. This game is set in the same world as the original, only, at least 100 years later. And this one had multiple monsters available to fight, had multiple party members. It was very innovative for its time. That said, it suffered from executive meddling. It was not allowed to be properly playtested all the way through, which they readily admitted when asked about it. Had it been able to, I think that things would have went better for it overall, and it would probably rank at least the same tier as its predecessor. But the original release suffered not only from executive meddling, but size limitations as well. So I'm going to leave it in C tier. Sucks because it could easily have earned more than that if it had been given a little more time, but they wanted it pushed out at a certain release date, and that's what we got. Third entry now. This one is probably the best of the lot, at least as far as these go. 3 also takes place in the same chronological timeline as 1 and 2, though you don't know it at first. This game also has multiple party members allowed, but unlike 2, 2s were all named and had their own personalities to a point. It was very rough in the NES days, that's what they're going with. In 3, you have blank slate characters. You choose their classes, which is a first for this series, and you go through the game like that. Your primary character cannot ever change their class. They are just a hero, and that's all there is to it, which is fine. That's the best class. But everyone else you can use, you can choose a class for them, you can change it down the road, but they do not have anything interesting to say. Nothing. Blank slate. That said, the story of this game is very interesting. And for its time, it had quite the twist to it that people I don't think were expecting. Because it doesn't look like it has any tie-in at all until you really dig into it. Good game. Had a lot more testing done to it, obviously. I will give you an A ranking. I think you deserve it. Now, my personal favorite of the NES era, Dragon Warrior 4, of which I still have the cartridge sitting right next to me. Well, a little further away than that, but anywho, this game took the idea of classes from 3, and instead of it just being people you make with blank slates, this time you have named characters with their own personalities and storylines with assigned classes. So combine the ideas of 2 and 3, basically, as far as your party members. Also, they're introduced to you in chapters. They don't just blob them all to you all at once. And the game progresses in a way that's almost like you're reading a book. And I appreciated that. It was neat. There's a lot of different ways you can go through it as far as your party down the road, and it's overall a good time. Its future remake adds more story to it, which I personally think is better, but A rank you go. Also, the future remake for 4 gives them accents for some ungodly stupid reason that is not followed through later on, and I think was pointless. But that's just an old man griping, I think. Next we have a lot of people's favorite, Dragon Quest V. Now, just as 1 through 3 are set in the same world, so are 4 through 6. And I personally think 5 is the best. This one, if you ever played Phantasy Star 3, it has a kind of similar idea where it has multiple generations of player characters. Although it doesn't sit you down to the next one and then the former is no longer usable. And doesn't have the god-awful monster designs of PS3 either. Ooh. Anyway, this one starts you out with your protagonist as just a kid. And it progresses through their adulthood and into adult life. It's pretty neat. And unlike the others, you are not the hero of the story. Not directly. Which was a fun twist. It was different compared to every other Dragon Quest of its day. The characters are memorable. The story was pretty good. And I didn't find anything very annoying about it. So, I'm going to be biased as all hell and give you an S ranking. because I think it's the best one out of everything on this list so far. Your mileage may vary. Some people like things differently. That's fine. I think it could have done some things better. I will say that a future remake of 5 actually did make it better rather than worse for a change, and give you more options for branching. And I appreciated that. But all the same, great game, S-Class. And here we have Dragon Warrior 6. This one was an odd one to try to play earlier on in life. Obviously, 5 and 6 didn't get a US release until much later. And unlike 5, getting a fan translation of 6 to fully land was just voodoo for some reason. I don't know if the groups doing it were just having issues, or I don't know what the problem was. But getting an actual full translation for this game for the longest time was so damn difficult. That said, the game itself is not bad. It also brings back the class change system. It takes a little while to get there, but it's interesting in how they portray all of this. I really like it. And it also explains why you don't have that system in 4 and 5. But that's for you to play and find out. Overall, it's not as good as 5 was, but it's still a pretty solid game. I think it deserves to be a B tier. I'd almost say B plus, but I'm not going to make other of these. I'm not fooling with that. Suffice to say that if there were leaning towards A, that's where it would sit. And here we come to the last entry that bore Dragon Warrior in the US, 7. This one, I wanted to like it more than I do. And it's honestly not a bad game overall, but the way they executed things was poor. The way that you explore and expand the world in this is awesome. It's a unique take that hadn't been done in this series before at all. Completely different. But they padded it out far too much and made getting to the good stuff such a pain in the ass that a lot of people felt that it was not great because of that, myself included. And I'm a huge Dragon Quest apologist. I'll tell you right now, it's no good like that. I wish that they had done better on that, because overall the game itself is not bad. But if you have multiple points that feel like a slog before you even get to the really good parts, like this game has class changes as well, what they know as the Dharma Temple. That's a common theme in these games. Getting to that point, and especially getting through that segment, is such a pain that it kills your enjoyment, that once you do get to it, you feel like, I don't even want to go forward anymore. So, you get a C tier. If they removed some of the padding that they shoved in there, it'd easily sit higher, and I'd be happy to put it higher. Perhaps the upcoming remake will deliver on the promises and finally bring that forth for us. But even if it did, again, this is not for remakes, this is for the original. Now to slingshot us in a completely different direction. Dragon Quest VIII. This game is great. You hardly ever have people who complain much about it. It had good characters, good personalities, voice acting, which we hadn't had in this series up to now. And the voice acting really brings it home. They did a good job all around on that. Really made you feel what the characters were going for, and made the humor stand out a lot better. This game just shines. Could it be better? Sure. Does it need to be? Not really. I'm probably being biased as hell here, but overall, this game deserves the S ranking. It doesn't have classes in it, but it does have different skill sets you can adopt for your characters depending, and that can very much change your play style. It's enough that I think it's worth playing. Now to Slingshot again. Dragon Quest IX. I never had a DS, so really digging into it and playing it wasn't an option for me. I have done a little bit of it in emulation, and I've seen plenty of information about it from others that have put it on the internet. It has an interesting open premise, one that I think has barely even been touched in this series, except for maybe a little in 4. But everything after that just falls flat, man. You have the same kind of system for your companions as you do in 3. Blank slates, choose their class, choose how they look this time, but there's nothing there, there's no substance. Your protagonist is silent, which, after having voice acting in 8, feels like 2 steps backwards. They could have done a lot better if they ignored putting this on a DS and continued with a normal console. But this is the route they went with, and honestly, it's a slog. A lot of the game is in-game grinding and super bosses, which admittedly, having the super bosses in there is cool. I like that. But getting through it to get to that point just feels like pain. That's why the D tier is on this list. Welcome to it. Unfortunately, you earned it. And now we reach our final destination for now. Dragon Quest XI. This game ties a lot of other things in the series together with little Easter eggs. It's pretty neat. A lot of voice acting brought back here again. I don't think quite as good as 8, but it's still really solid. Funny enough, I think that the expanded remake for this game is the better option. I would definitely play that over the original. But original is what we're talking about. Ooh. That being said, you have a good range with your characters. They're entertaining. The story is not bad. It's a little long in the tooth, but honestly, what kind of JRPG isn't these days? You know, it's not the best, but it's so far from the worst. I would say it gets an A ranking. I don't think that it deserves to go lower than that. I don't think it deserves higher than that. That's a very good sweet spot for it. And that is my personal tier list of the Dragon Quest games so far. Still waiting to hear back about anything for 12. It's been so long, it's starting to get GTA vibes. But hopefully we'll have something on that soon, and we can actually see what they're wanting to do with this. I may one day rank some spin-offs for this, but don't hold your breath, because a lot of those also didn't come out here, and trying to dig all that up may be more trouble than it's worth. So, thank you for your time. I will probably be kicking something off here again before too long, but I'm still debating what I'm going to do. So, for now, thank you for coming. Have fun and stay safe.